Rapid City should be very proud, and I'm so glad that other, communities are copying what Rapid City did originally because we just had such strong support from everybody, from organizations to businesses to private individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, they were all about it. And that was one of the things I kind of preached a little bit too. The beginning is like, we are doing a lot of help to other countries about hunger, but we are not doing anything here.
Right here.
And what are we doing for our neighbors? And I think that hit home.
Yeah.
That people started to look at, my neighbor's hungry. And,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things too I think about is that it doesn't matter where in the world that you are, we enjoy each other's company around food. And I even look at, because of where the Career Learning Center is based, we have a lot of homeless neighbors around us. And I look at somebody has some food and because they're right outside my window under a shade tree and they're sharing their food and really and they're laughing and enjoying each other. And it's no different than if they were sitting at a dining room table.
Right.
And so,
It's their dining room table.
Food really is culturally important to everybody.
It brings us together.
Not only a basic need, but it does bring us together.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of 50 Faces of Feeding South Dakota. We're glad you're joining us. We've got some great conversation this month around child hunger, which is something that many people are aware of. It's a near and dear topic to many hearts, whether it be our supporters, people in schools, people engaging with kids in daycares, all across the state. We have a lot of conversation around child hunger. And so this, as we head back to school in August, was a great month to really build our podcast episodes around that. So I'm excited for today's conversation. We're going to go back into the archives a little bit today and talk about how the backpack program got started with Feeding South Dakota. So we're in Rapid City today, and I'm going to start off. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Jeannie Burkhart McKenna, and I was a principal at North Middle School when we started the backpack program, and I currently am the Director of Education and Workforce Development with the Black Hills Special Services Cooperative.
So, Jeannie, you, how long were you the principal at North Middle School?
10 years.
10 years, okay. So, 2006, I believe, was when the first backpack program happened with Feeding South Dakota. And, I mean, way back when the podcast started this year, in January, when Matt Gasson visited with us, he talked about the start of the backpack program. Because the organization has really transformed from here in Rapid City potato giveaways, to what we are today, which is a lot of specific programming. So let's talk a little bit about 2006. Let's go back.
Okay.
What were things like in the school in Rapid City?
Well, of course, I was at North Middle School, so about 79% of my kids were considered in the impoverished range. So receiving free school lunch. And the thing is, when we started really seeing that our kids were going hungry on the weekends, and when I say we, I'm talking about my North Middle School team.
Yeah.
And there weren't any resources at all for kids' food. I mean,
other
to
than
feed our
the
kids.
school lunch, the free or
the
reduced.
school lunch, and other than that, if parents were, if they had accessibility to the food program.
Like
But
the
it
food
wasn't
stamps
specific, food stamps, but they were not specific to child hunger.
So, as you mentioned you started noticing over the weekends. How did that come to be obvious to you?
Well, I worked a lot of weekends, and I enjoyed working the weekends because I got caught up. You weren't getting all the phone calls. And so kids would come knocking on my office window because they'd see my pickup out front, and they would ask if they could come in, which, of course, I let them come in. And they would want to work for me. And I'd put them to work filing and shredding and what have you.
Yeah,
just
good,
some busy
wholesome
tasks,
things to do. Yeah,
and I always had snacks in my office, which the kids knew. So then they were eating while they were working, and that's really what it came down to. And so then I started having conversations with Stan Adelstein, who was a big supporter of North Middle School and some of the innovative programs we were doing there. And I was talking to him, and we were trying to really come up with an idea of how could we feed the kids on the weekends, during the holidays, especially during the summer.
When that
and
gap
there just
is
wasn't anything there. And I just happened to be watching the news one night, the nightly news, and a school district from Pennsylvania, I can't remember which one, because it's been years ago, popped up that they were doing this backpack program, and I'm like, aha.
There it is.
There it is, because we couldn't pay our lunch folks. They work part-time anyway, and we couldn't pay them. They didn't want to come on the weekends and give up their time with their families, and we understood that. And you can't really hire people part-time for those few hours on the weekends or holidays. And I thought this could be a solution. And so then I started kind of seeking out there, and the food bank was really close to North Middle School, which of course the food banks back then, that is Feeding South Dakota. And so I talked to Monica.
It was
and I
Black
can't,
Hills Regional
food bank.
Yep.
And I can't remember Monica's last name, and she was just a gem. And we started talking, and she said, let's get Matt Gasson involved.
Yes,
and
who was the CEO.
Yes.
Yes.
And so Matt came out to Rapid City, and we sat down, and I brought my homeless coordinator with me from the Rapid City School District, and that was Elaine Dolores. And we all sat down and had a conversation about the backpack program. And we just knew that using the food bank, using Feeding South Dakota would be perfect because we could really stretch that dollar. So then it really came down to how we're going to get the money to get started.
So at this point, I can just picture you sitting down with Matt Gasson. You probably are all prepared. You've got your plead your case, right? What was Matt's reaction?
Matt was great to work with.
He was like, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it just fits with the mission, right?
Yeah. And so, we had that conversation about what kind of money do we need. And he said we really could use about $40,000 to kind of insure this first year.
For just North Middle School?
Just for North Middle School.
Okay.
Just get the program up and running. And I was like, 40,000. Wow, we can do this. We can do this. And so Stan Adelstein, I called him, told him what happened, what's going on, and he wrote me a check for $20,000.
And was he a senator at this point?
No.
No, not yet. Okay.
No, he was not. He still had his own business in Rapid City, and Stan grew up poor.
Yep.
And so, he's a self-made man.
Sure.
And I went to school with one of his sons, and so I knew the family from a long time ago. And he's just always been really interested in childhood hunger, because he said, I remember a lot of days I was hungry.
Right. When people
myself
can
also.
report or not report, when they can identify with that, and then they have the means to help bring solutions into play.
Right.
That's even better, right? Because they know what it's like to be hungry over a weekend or over a break.
Yeah.
So at this time, was there also breakfast served at school, or was it just lunch?
I don't believe we had breakfast then either. We did eventually get breakfast for our kiddos. But of course, teenagers, they sleep in. I mean, a lot of them weren't eating breakfast anyway because they don't get to school on time.
Yeah.
And so that's when we kind of switched to where we were serving breakfast in the classroom. So that first period class, because our kids didn't want to come early.
Right.
If they chose sleep or eating, teenagers will always pick
sleep.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I've got an 18-year-old. I think she sleeps when any moment that's not social or eating.
Yes.
So as I think about it, when a lot of times when we talk about child hunger, we like to share the impact. So research tells us that a child who's hungry coming to school is less likely to be able to pay attention. They're going to be more likely to have behavior issues, social issues, test behind from their peers, because their thought process is on lunch is coming and I'm so hungry because I haven't eaten for the weekend, or I've eaten very little. Was that some of what you were seeing happening with those middle schoolers?
Yes, and especially my boys, because middle school boys are really growing.
Yeah, they need a lot of
food. And
food.
they're really hungry. And even our school lunches just aren't sufficient even for them then. And so like in our office, we had a fridge that we had milk cartons. We had snacks in there. I allowed my teachers to have fridges in their rooms so that same thing, they could have snacks of any sort in there. And we really tried to have it where the kids could snack while they worked.
Sure.
I mean, it was just...
Because sometimes if they're falling asleep at their desk, it's hunger. And giving them, a little something to bring that blood sugar up, can kind of get things going, can really help with that.
Yeah. And how many of us snack while we
Oh my
work?
gosh, right.
So
yeah.
it's like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is happening, and you have the conversation with Matt Gasson. Stan writes you a check for $20,000. You're like, okay, now we can really do this, right?
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, I started seeking out different organizations within the Rapid City community, and was well received. And so I would I would go speak and to try to raise funds. And it was kind of fun because the media did a lot of stuff too to help us out. The Rapid City Journal, all those TV stations, and it was so cute because my secretaries would get these little checks. They might be $20,
Oh.
but they would be wrapped up in paper
Oh.
and put in the envelope, which I know these were elderly people.
They
then
didn't
that were
want
doing
anybody
that.
to see the check
Yeah,
through the envelope
yeah.
in the mail.
in case they could get that money. But it was so cute. And so eventually we just started making more and more money, but we got the program going in the meantime. The food, Feeding South Dakota got volunteers to put the backpacks together. We had backpacks donated, so we had those available if the kids didn't have a
Actual
backpack.
physical backpacks. Yes.
Because we wanted the kids not to have other kids seeing them carrying a pack of
You
food.
were worried about the stigma.
Yeah. And so then I started bringing kids that were already on the backpack program. I started bringing them to some of these speaking engagements.
Wow.
So I'd bring 2 or 3 kids with me every time.
And they
it
were
was
willing.
So funny.
They were-
yes.
it was-
I went to the insurance agents in Rapid City, and we had several. I was trying to think, probably 30 or 40 insurance folks there. And the gal that had set it up said to me, well, we're probably going to donate about $1,500. I said, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was so excited. And I had 2 of my students with me, and they spoke. And I'll never forget one of the little guys, and I know he was the reason why we got a bigger donation. But he said, when I bring my backpack home on Friday night, he said, I live with my grandma, and she has a special place in my cupboard where I get to put my food. And she loves oranges, and we can't ever afford to buy fruit. So if I get oranges, I always save the oranges for my grandma.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And so it was like, they ended up donating like $15,000. I mean, it was just an incredible amount, over $1,500.
That was
So
it was
just
like, add
and I
another
know
zero.
he's the reason
Yeah.
that why we got that big donation.
Well, it's really difficult to hear. And I remember before I worked for Feeding South Dakota being at some United Way rallies. And I remember Feeding South Dakota coming in to one and talking about the backpack program. And the gal that came and spoke talked about how kids would take that home and they would hide it, hide parts of it so that they could have a Thanksgiving meal. Like if there was a can of green beans in there or something, applesauce, and they'd kind of stash it away so that for a holiday their family had something to eat. Or they'd have to hide it because they had older siblings or younger siblings that could take it, and it was less food. And I just remember that being so impactful to me because I was fortunate to not have to experience that.
Right.
And it would have never crossed my mind that that's something a child actually goes through every day. That, they have to have that forethought of protecting that food so that they have something to eat. And I just thought it was so great that there was something out there that could help meet that need.
Yeah. Well, and my mom and dad, I didn't go hungry. I know we didn't have a lot of extra money, but I don't ever remember going hungry. But my mom and dad both grew up very poor.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad actually, and so Victor and Dorothy Burkhart, one of their good friends, Peggy Pintock, came every Friday to hand out the backpacks. And they really streamlined the process. And it was just something they loved to do because they understood that.
Yeah.
And they had a box up on the stage so they would have the kids go through the backpack, and anything they knew they wouldn't eat, they put in the box. And then they could grab anything extra out of the box that they wanted to.
What a great idea.
Yeah, and so that was their idea to do that. And so we never had anything in the box by the time the last student left. But that
And you
way
made sure
stuff wasn't
everything
thrown away.
right, everything got used.
Everything got used.
And they were going to eat what they...
And I would have never thought of that, but that's something my mom and dad and Peggy thought of.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
She knows how to be resourceful, it
Yes.
sounds like. Yeah. So Feeding South Dakota gets the food, gets the volunteers, the actual physical backpacks. Do you know how the decision making went into play for what food to put into the backpacks?
Well, when we started, we had to start kind of cheap. I have to be honest, till we got it figured out. And then as more donations came in, because really for 2 years, yes, I was a principal in North, but I was doing a lot of fundraising. And so
For this program.
just huge, yeah. It's a lot of speaking engagements. As more money came in, we were able to add more fruit. And so that was something Feeding South Dakota constantly look at, is how can we get this backpack of food healthier for our kiddos, but yet something that they can keep. They also thought of things that I hadn't thought of, like if it was something canned, they had the Pop Tops.
Yes.
Or before we had the Pop Tops, they would buy can openers, can openers, so that the kids could have a can opener.
Yeah,
And so that was stuff I hadn't thought of that
Right.
Feeding South Dakota
Or-
figured out.
because we still have families that may not have a can opener, or if we put particular fruit in some of our programs, like a whole pineapple,
Right. They can't cut it.
or don't know how,
Yeah.
right? They look at it and say, how do I get into
Yeah.
this? And anybody could.
Yeah.
But the reality is the less you're, eating the whole fresh fruits like that, the
Yeah.
less you know how to work with it. So
I had some students that actually, because a lot of if they were older siblings, they were taking care of younger siblings, because a lot of my parents were working more than one job. And so I had one girl that was, when she got the canned stuff, like if she had SpaghettiOs or whatever it was, whether it be in the backpack program or something else, she would run hot water and run that can under it
Warm
so
it
she
up.
could heat it up to serve to her siblings. And we would find that out. So we started asking people to donate microwaves. So then we started handing out microwaves to some of the families that needed those. And that was really for the kiddos that were actually producing the meal for the family that evening, because mom or dad were working.
Yeah. And
So-
at that time, there was an Easy Mac
Yeah.
that you
No,
could
there wasn't.
just throw in the microwave, you know. And
Yeah.
and I that's a really good
You
point.
know, because they didn't have a stove.
Yeah.
They might be living in one of those efficiency hotel rooms, and they didn't have a stove or
Right.
anything. They just had
Had
hot
a little
water.
fridge and hot
But a
water.
microwave they could plug in and have that. So
That is really above and beyond.
yeah.
I mean, I can see why you were fundraising for so long.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, food is one thing, but
Yeah.
then all the things to go with it, to cook it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I did that for 2 years, and then in 2008, United Way approached me and said, we'd love to take on the backpack program, and they had heard that I was retiring from the district and that I was trying a different
they didn't want it to
venture.
stop.
And they didn't want it to stop, which I was so, because that was my worst fear about leaving, was that what's going to happen to the backpack program, because by then we had added all of our feeder schools. So like Horseman and
Okay.
General Beetle and Knollwood.
Now it has
So,
expanded
yeah.
2 years later.
Yeah, and Central High School eventually. So
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, so then we had
In
had
2
out
years,
of
that's a
those.
lot
Yeah.
of additions.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that was the community, you know, sending us $20, $30 checks. I mean, I had some for $5 and $10, but it all adds up.
And it does.
Really adds up.
It does. And that's something that I think is just so beautiful about a food bank.
Yeah.
And that you can support it at whatever level you can afford.
Right.
You know, that $5
Yep.
will go, just, you know, it can be just as impactful as a larger gift
Yep.
because it's still going to make a difference. It's
Yeah.
still going to make something happen. And even if dollars aren't what you can give volunteering,
Yes.
you know, we need
You
people
have
to
lots of
pack the backpack.
opportunities to
Yeah.
volunteer. My mom always taught me to handwritten gift thank you cards. And so I wrote handwritten thank you cards to anybody that donated.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and that was a lot of time.
I
But it was worth
bet.
it. I mean, it really was worth it, because people needed to know how important that was.
So then United Way came and took it on. So they did the fundraising.
And then I ended up moving to Utah. When I came back, Feeding South Dakota had it.
Then we had
So
it. Yeah.
was like, yay, it's still going on. And then I forget who I was talking to, because I was helping with a giveaway when I came back. And he said, oh, you're the backpack lady. And we started talking. And he said, we feed over 5,000 kids now. And I said, what? I just teared up. I could not believe it. I was so excited.
You should be really proud of
So-
yourself. I mean, you really should. What an amazing thing to have brought to the state. And I'm guessing you don't get enough accolades for that, but
It's okay. The important thing, it's still here.
it is. And
That's what,
yeah.
makes me feel good.
You're really just a person who cared so much that you wanted a solution and found it and made it happen. And I would guess we'd have something in place by now, but at that time that wasn't on the radar. And meeting the needs of children is so important. We
Yeah.
want kids to be able to succeed in school, to set them up for success in their post-graduating, whether they
Right.
go on to college or they go into the workforce, if anything that they're learning in school is going to just help them. And sometimes that can change that cycle of poverty and hunger so that the next generation isn't in that same situation.
Right. Well, on my team at North Middle School, from my teachers to my custodians to everybody, my office staff, they were so passionate about our kids and really taking care of them. And we did not want our kids to feel embarrassed because they were growing up in poverty. That isn't their choice.
Right.
And the thing is,
And it
they
doesn't make
shouldn't
them
have
any
to
less
do
special
without because of
Yes,
it.
Right.
And so they often brought ideas to me, and then I would try to figure out, all right, how we're going to fund this? Who are we going to look for? Because I'm not scared to knock on doors.
Yeah.
And so
Obviously.
yeah.
Yeah. You're not afraid to elevate it. I still honestly, what I keep thinking about is those kids coming with you to speak.
Yeah.
And
that was a game changer.
I
It
can
really
only
was.
imagine. And you talked about the stigma, and even today, stories are what the supporters of Feeding South Dakota want to hear. They want to know how the food that people are receiving is positively impacting. And it has become very difficult to gather those stories because of, I believe, the stigma around hunger.
Right.
I think it's really difficult for people to share that. And actually, the backpack program itself has kind of morphed into something different because we found that at some point middle schoolers didn't want that food because of the stigma behind it. And so now the backpack program is really strong in elementary schools,
Right.
where those kids maybe, they're hungry and they're just interested in meeting the need of food. It doesn't matter that they're taking a bag of food home, especially if there's 3 other kids in their class that are taking that bag of food home.
Well, it's almost kind of like, you know what? I'm a 5th grader and I'm bringing this backpack food home for my family. I am helping support my family.
Yeah.
Which gives them a really
Sense of pride.
Yes, a sense of pride.
And participating. So when the program started in the middle school, you said there were some efficiencies to be built, of course, with anything that's new. What did you notice? Did you notice a shift in the kids themselves that were getting the food?
Oh, yeah, definitely. In fact, we would get a pretty good waiting list, and so we really tried to help conquer that.
Yeah.
So constantly I was calling Monica, hey, Monica, we need another 20 backpacks. We have this. I got more checks in. I have more money coming. Because what I did is the checks came in to me at North, and then we basically, if they were written to North Middle School, we signed them over to Feeding South Dakota. So
sure.
Feeding South Dakota took care of that, which was a huge part for me. If we had to, take care of the finances, that could have been an issue.
And
so
the
I
sourcing
really
the
was just
food
on the road with my kiddos
you had
doing the show.
Doing the show.
I got to do the fun part. Monica got to figure out, and Matt, all the rest of the stuff. So
the logistics of it. So that was 20 years ago, right?
It's been that long ago.
Yeah. Do you ever, do you know, some of those kids that were part of that initial start?
Yeah.
Do you know? Talk a little bit about that. How are they doing?
It's funny because one of my students, I had to get a crown, and she struggled in school, but she was so artistic, and she was making my crown, and I said, it's going to be a beautiful crown because you were one of the best artists I ever had. And this is when I was even a teacher, and it was a beautiful crown, fit perfect. But I'm running into students all the time. I had a past student that just was voted in the city council.
Wow.
It's really cool to see. And now, because I work with adults at the Career Learning Center and all over the state with some of the programs, I have 11 programs that I oversee. And I see students, and they come in, some of them come in to get their GED, and they're like, they tell the instructor, I think that was my principal. And she'll tell them, well, she's your principal again. But it's good conversation, because then they apologize. They said, I didn't finish high school. Hey, you guys, you know what? You're here now. That's what's important.
Right.
And we're going to help you finish this.
The
You're going to get
you're
done.
making now is what matters.
Yeah. So it's really fun to see students and their families. And I do have definitely some success stories of just seeing kids. And sometimes you don't see those. That's the thing in teaching.
Yeah.
Sometimes you never see the successes later on because you don't run into those kids again.
Yeah, and
my first students I ever had as a teacher in Rapid City are now 49 years old.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that time just go like
elementary.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Those were
crazy.
elementary kids.
Those were elementary kids. So
Yeah,
they're now 49.
And now you're with adults, and so
Yep.
it's pretty.
Yeah.
I can see why that. You're seeing.
And
it
we're
again.
still working with Feeding South Dakota because we have a student pantry.
You do, yeah, and
at
so
our
that's
site.
a little bit how the program has evolved over time. So now the backpack program started here at North Middle School, and is now statewide. So we partner with 85 schools
That's amazing.
to every year in the school year deliver the backpack program. Summer's a little more tricky because there's, to your point earlier, there's not staff in some of these rural communities, because we have volunteers pack the backpacks, and then they get delivered or picked up, and then it's staff at the school that hands them out. And if they're not there to do that, or if there's not a summer school program where kids are coming to the school for that access, that makes it a little more difficult. But we do have sites in Rapid City and Sioux Falls, because there's typically staff there, that run for, I think, 8 of the 10 weeks of summer or
good.
something like that, yeah. But
So that's definitely evolved.
yeah, it has evolved.
Because before I would feed my kids in the summer because we had a summer program.
Yeah, and I know Sioux Falls School District, I don't remember if it was last summer or the summer before, did meals in the summer, and that was great because there are so many kids that need access to that. And then that helped us because the backpacks could go and they'd come in and get lunch or breakfast and lunch, and then they'd have the backpack at the end of the week to take home.
Yeah.
And that just was more access. But I talked a little bit about how the middle school has become a little bit of a stigma. And so a lot of elementary schools that we partner with, a couple of high schools, but school pantries have really, we don't have very many of them across the state right now because that is a lot of work on the staff part. You have to have the space in the school to have the food. You have to have the volunteers to order the food, receive the food, stock the food, manage the pantry. But the high school here in Rapid City has one. And
Is that at Rapid City High?
Yep. And it's open to any family that has a kiddo in the school district. And I remember the first time I went.
Because Mary ran that.
Yes. Yep.
Because we had the free store right across from there.
Okay.
For several years with her. So people could shop for food, and then they came over and got free clothing from us.
Okay.
In our gently used store.
See? So that's perfect. And when I went to the high school, I remember we went toward the end. So I think it's I don't remember if it's once a week or once a month that it's open, the pantry, in the evening. And it's run by students.
We used to do it twice a month.
Okay,
when
so
Mary
it must be
was
once
there.
a month, maybe. Or maybe it's twice a month. I don't want to misinform, so check the website. But I remember as we were walking up, because it's a separate building from the high school that they're in.
Yep.
And I remember as we were walking up, there was a note on the door that said, line wraps around the corner or something like that. And I was sort of like, oh, isn't that cute? And we opened up the door, and that entire length of that hallway was filled with people.
Yeah.
And we walked down that hallway and then turned a corner, and there was yet another line of people before you even got to the pantry. And we helped in the pantry that evening. And the way that they have it, going, they have shopping carts. One of the local grocers
donated
those.
a shopping cart that we had from the free store when we shut down.
So they had shopping carts, and the family comes in and they kind of walk around the perimeter of the room, and there's a shelving unit of vegetables, and you can have 3 cans and fruits.
Often they have milk.
Yeah, and a deep freeze with beef in it, and that's a Feeding South Dakota pantry, and so the food, Mary was helping get the food there, but I remember, so some of the food that goes in there is retail rescue food, and that comes from Target, Sam's, Walmart, a variety of places around the community. And a lot of times it's damaged food. So it'll be cereal boxes where the outer box is ripped or torn or bent, but the inside bag is still sealed. So it's consumable. And I just remember how excited the kids were to have be able to take the name brand cereal. They did not care that outer box wasn't perfect. They were so excited. We couldn't keep the cereal on the shelf. They could take one box, and we couldn't keep it on there fast enough. But that, to me, was really a great way to get those middle and high schoolers into some place where they could shop, where it didn't feel the same as being handed a bag of food.
Grocery store.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the way you have it set up, it is like a grocery store.
Yeah.
It really is.
And they've expanded even. They've moved into a bigger space now.
Because they were pretty crowded.
They were. Yeah. It was pretty tight in there. Yeah. But then the high school students run it.
Oh, nice.
And a high school student would go out with the cart when the family was done, go out to their car with them, and they would help them load the groceries and then bring the cart back in. And I remember asking the student at the time, like, why do you do that? Why do you go out? And he said, well, a couple of reasons. One, they've got to load their kids, and they've been standing in line, and they've been here long enough, and I want to let them get back to their home life, and they've got to get their kids in the car. So if I can help get the groceries in the car so they can get on their way. And he said, 2, I need the cart back in the store.
That is true.
So it is. I was just so impressed. Yeah. And as you've talked about this, back in June, our episodes on the podcast were about community-led solutions and how the best solutions for hunger come from community. They know what they need. And this really could have fit well into that discussion too, because you knew what you needed, you had the idea, and your community just came out gangbusters to support it.
Yeah.
And take it over and continue to develop it.
Rapid City should be very proud. And I'm so glad that other, communities are copying what Rapid City did originally, because we just had such strong support from everybody. From organizations to businesses to private individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, they were all about it. And that was one of the things I kind of preached a little bit too, the beginning is like we are doing a lot of help to other countries for about hunger, but we are not doing anything here.
Right here.
And what are we doing for our neighbors? And I think that hit home.
Yeah.
That people started to look at my neighbor's hungry. And,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things too I think about is that it doesn't matter where in the world that you are, we enjoy each other's company around food. And I even look at, because of where the Career Learning Center is based, we have a lot of homeless neighbors around us. And I look at somebody has some food and because they're right outside my window under a shade tree and they're sharing their food and really and they're laughing and enjoying each other. And it's no different than if they were sitting at a dining room table.
Right.
And so,
It's their dining room
really,
table.
food really is culturally important to everybody.
It brings us together.
Not only a basic need, but it does bring us together.
You're absolutely right. And I, the backpack program, like I said, still is a beloved program for donors and volunteers. And I think that when it comes to child hunger, it's easy to identify children who are hungry. It's easy to, to your point, they didn't choose to be hungry. So it's easy to meet that need. But I really hope the attitude on that can transfer over to the adults because we do hear sometimes like, oh, I saw people getting food that don't need it, but we don't know their situation.
Yeah.
And I think there may have been kids at time, and there probably still are today, that a staff member gives them a backpack that other people would think, well, their family doesn't need it. But that staff member has identified something, maybe a medical issue in the family or,
Well, and there's at times when all of us as a family have harder times than others, that where we need a step up to help us out and then we can get back on track. And so I think people forget that too, because one of the things when I've been in the Feeding South Dakota giveaway lines as a volunteer, I'll hear that, oh, geez, did you see some of the nice cars people are driving? Well, they weren't nice cars. They're people they're stable cars.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't a family have a stable car?
Yeah.
These parents are probably still working, but maybe they're probably not making, like a salary position. They're making an hourly position. And I know people think, oh, they're making $18 an hour at McDonald's, but if our cost of living and everything else, especially with housing, is insane.
Yeah.
And
I find
you need a car to drive to work,
or
or you can't keep your job.
Or they may have borrowed it from a neighbor or a friend, or they may be there picking up for somebody who can't get there. You don't just don't know the situation.
So don't judge. Just don't judge others.
That's a hard thing, and I think we're very proud people here, and asking for help is difficult.
Yeah.
And so really our thought process is if somebody is there asking for food, they need the food.
Yeah, we don't need to question them.
We don't,
and the thing is, if somebody is especially like some of the federal programs, I know that because I work with a few federal programs, there are so many speed bumps along the way that people really get disheartened before and I thought, if a typical person had to go through all of the obstacles that someone has to do to get a resource, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so
I do think
so
that a lot of people
really want
give
to
up.
eliminate those obstacles.
Yeah.
So.
I think people do give up on some of that because of, well, I know we did some application assistance for a while for SNAP to help neighbors in our lines. And, we would help them to a point and they would say, I just, now this happened or I missed the interview and they get frustrated because I think when you are hungry and you just want to know where your next meal is going to come from, you can't think beyond that. And so when the solution isn't easy sometimes, then that's not a solution.
Right.
And that's where we come in. We come in to meet the need while it's there, while also helping them, hopefully to get to the next level where they don't need our food access because they've been able to successfully get other resources or change, their situation.
Well, and Feeding South Dakota has helped us too with the Community Connect event. And what we do there is we have the free store, a huge free store, but we also have like 25, 30 agencies there, and that is to help people so that they can stop and see maybe 6 agencies where normally this would be a different day appointment for those 6. And the agencies will tell you too, we saw 25 individuals and families today. We couldn't see that many people in a week.
No.
Usually a month.
Right. Yeah.
And so that really helps. But Feeding South Dakota has partnered with us on several of those events too.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
we love Feeding South Dakota as a partner on everything
Okay,
that
so
we
now
do out
there's
there.
not. I mean, I invited you for good reason, but not to toot our horn. But I think we are really involved in a lot of the solutions. And as the only food bank and the largest hunger relief organization in the state, it makes sense for people to turn to us and say, how can you help my community?
Yeah.
And we're serving children through these child hunger programs, the backpack program, the school pantry program, but also through the mobile food distribution where families are getting food, and through our agency partners, the food pantries or the hot meal sites where families are coming in to get food.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really robust fight. I'm
Well,
going to say it's a fight. It's a fight to end hunger.
I have two alternatives. One's a high school credit recovery program outside of Spearfish, and the other one's an alternative school for middle school and high school students. And the alternative school, they came to me and they said, not even knowing that I was ever involved with the backpack program, they said, our kids just go home. Our day students really go home hungry on the weekends. They're really hungry on Mondays. And I said, well, have you ever thought
Here's
about
somebody
the
you can
backpack
call.
program?
Yeah.
And so then I actually met with the peer team and got that rolling. So now we only needed 8 backpacks, which
that's
doesn't
pretty simple.
sound like a lot, but it's still a big process. And so Spearfish, luckily, their team, the staff team there is actually delivering to our site because we're
that's
just right
great.
behind the Holiday Inn outside of Spearfish.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so now the kiddos are taking
Yeah.
backpacks home on the weekend, and the staff has said, oh, it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
yeah, but again, Feeding South Dakota had their doors open, and it was like,
Well, that's, I'm grateful that our organization, we get great support from across the state, and I'm grateful that we can be there to be a solution when people need it.
Yeah.
And we know that in rural communities, there's even greater challenges, and sometimes those backpacks mean even more than they do in Rapid City or Sioux Falls or Pierre, because it might be the only program. We might not have a mobile there, or there might not be a food pantry.
well, I know a principal, and this has been a few years back, I mean, several years, and she was at Ulrich's as the principal and wanted the backpack program. So she actually picked up the food in Hot Springs, and then she just delivered it to her school.
Yeah, we do
So
have
you guys
some
have
partners.
a lot of alternatives like that,
Yep,
too.
exactly. We have, we have schools being served not through Feeding South Dakota's backpack program, but through a partner who gets the food and then puts the backpack together. And that's how they end up being different sometimes, because we now purchase, for a while, I think donated food was going into the backpacks. And now we purchase it so that we have control of quality, but also can balance with those healthy foods.
That's fantastic.
And we don't put fresh fruit in anymore. We got a lot of complaints from bus drivers about things left behind. And so it's fruit cups or canned. I mean, we would love to be able to do that, but if it's going to waste.
That used to be like one of the kids' favorite when they got fresh fruit.
Yeah, it is. Lori, our CEO, tells a story about being at a mobile distribution, and plums were being given to, out to families. And there was a young kid who just was so excited because they'd never had a plum.
Oh.
And I've never looked at fruit that exciting. And so I should maybe take a page out of that book, because I'm a little more like, I don't know if I'm going to like that, where they just embrace it and say, let me try that. So it's a good thing to do. Well, I feel like we could talk forever about this, and maybe some new
we're
solution.
passionate about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. But I thank you for being able to get this started and helping us get to where we are. I mean, really, where we are today.
That's good.
And just being able to meet that need and have schools know about the opportunity to partner with Feeding South Dakota.
Well, I think that's what the backpack program really brought about. And I think nationally, because it's pretty big nationally, and I'm not taking credit for starting it, because I copied from somebody else, which you do that.
Yeah.
If there's a great idea out there, why recreate? But, and we made it our own here in South Dakota. But the thing is that I think people really do look as hunger as being, it is our neighbor issue. It is not, we're not so busy. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't help other countries, but we really need to take care of our country first.
Yeah.
And especially our children.
And help them thrive.
Yeah.
Because and food is a very important component of that.
Right.
Socially and physically, to your point. Well, I have one question for you before we go, and it's not in my my list of questions for you. If South Dakota were a fruit or a vegetable, which one would it be? So what, not just like the category, but like a name of a fruit or vegetable. what one would it be and why?
Boy, that's a tough one.
I'll tell you, I've had a variety of
I
answers.
think we'd be I don't know if it's a fruit or vegetable, but I think we'd be a tomato.
Okay, well, that is
Because is it a
an
fruit?
argument.
It is, I think, a fruit or a vegetable because South Dakota, we are resilient as a state. We've weathered a lot of storms nationally. I think people just help each other out when it comes. We still, even in the, Sioux Falls and Rapid City areas, people do just get together and really help out when there's, a crisis or an event that's a tragedy or something else. I mean, we really support each other. So I think I'm saying tomato because it would be hard to describe this as a fruit or vegetable. I think for both.
Oh, that's really
So.
unique. Okay, that's a unique answer. And there's nothing quite like a fresh tomato from the garden. So
I'm worried about my tomatoes right now, but I did have a little green one pop up today.
Okay. So we'll
with
we'll
our
hope
weird
for it.
weather.
Yeah, it has been strange, hasn't it? Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story with us. And thank you for tuning in and listening to today's discussion. If you want to learn more about Feeding South Dakota's backpack program and child hunger programs, visit our website under the programs page where we outline how we're helping fight child hunger. 1 in 5 kids in South Dakota is considered food insecure right now. So this is an issue that we need to partner with more communities on and be able to help fight that child hunger. Go check it out and see what you can do to bring a hunger solution to your community. Thanks for having us today.